Is that one tattoo on your left arm, or is it a series of tattoos that accumulate over time?
Series of tattoos that accumulated over time.
That was my guess.
Yeah, I did this all in 5 months when I was really depressed. All of it. I had none of it for 5 months, and I haven't gotten one since. That was like 5 years ago. I don't know that I'll ever get another tattoo. I don't think I ever would have gotten tattoos if I didn't get depressed. It was like this weird cathartic way of surviving. Alright, what's going on, guys? No, just checking in with a far overdue video featuring Douglas Bloch, who's an author, counselor, depression survivor. He runs a depression support group. He mentors people privately all over the country. He's written a book that helped save my life, and he's not been on the channel for a long time, but I'm really glad we finally made it happen. I mostly blame myself because he's tried a bit harder than I have. So we're here, and we're going to broach a few topics that we hope can help you guys. I certainly think I stand to learn something from him, so I just want to mostly put the spotlight on him, and then I'll bounce some thoughts back and forth, and we'll see what we can all learn together. Link in the description if you'd like to check out his channel, but trust me, this guy knows his stuff, and he helped save my life when I was a part of his depression support group when I was at my worst. So without further ado, guys, please be kind and welcoming to Douglas Bloch, who took the time to come out and be on the channel.
Thanks, Noah.
Awesome. So today I want to talk about world events and how they can affect people, mind, body, and soul, and more specifically mental health. I guess the question I want to ask, and I feel like a lot of people could benefit from hearing your perspective on, is can world events make you depressed? And if so, what do you do to deal with that?
Well, it's interesting we bring that up today because before I came here, I was on the phone long distance coaching somebody on the East Coast who, after the American election, we're doing this in, excuse me, March of 2017.
Right.
So after the election 5 months ago in November, where we picked a new president, this person just completely tanked and went into a deep depression, and it actually triggered an episode. And he had never really had a depressive episode before.
Wow.
And now he's struggling to come out of it. He's doing a little bit better, but according to him, the major factor of his getting into this depression was the election, the despair he felt about the future of the United States, what's going to happen to him, some of his friends who are refugees, etc., etc. So there's a perfect example of someone who was affected by a particular event, e.g. the election in the United States. And the little poll I take of the people I know, one of my former group members called me up about a week later and said, I've gone into a dip. What can you do to help me? So there's just one example.
Yeah, and it's something I've heard as well. And I think some people are so sensitive, and I don't mean that in a negative connotation. I just mean where some people are just sensitive souls that when major events happen, be it a major election where someone they're concerned about has been elected, or a natural disaster, or whatever, whether it be globally or locally, they take it so personal and they can't let it go, and they obsess over it, and they can't find a way to work past it. I mean, what are you supposed to do when that happens? Because I personally have felt some pretty obsessive, depressive feelings in general over things in the past, such as social inequities and inequalities and what do you call it? Institutionalized racism. When I was in a social studies class, I learned about this, and I just felt overwhelmed by a problem that I was like, I don't know how to fix, and I felt like I needed to do something. I didn't know what to do, and I crumbled. I literally just threw myself into despair and anxiety, and I felt overwhelmed by it, and I didn't really know what to do. And I mean, what are you supposed to do with these things? How do you take this information in stride but not let it consume you and be debilitating?
One of the things I tell my clients, and it's been written about by a guy named Andrew Weil, a very famous medical doctor who wrote Spontaneous Healing. He was really famous in the 90s, very smart guy. He talked about limiting your exposure to the news, and I'll tell you why. Because when you turn on the TV at night, what do you mostly see? Terrorist attacks.
Exactly.
You see natural disasters. You see, like we have in Portland, we have something called KGW8.
Yeah.
I love their weather forecaster, Matt Zafino, so I turn on the 11 o'clock news. But before I can get to him, someone was murdered in Vancouver, someone got stabbed, someone got robbed. And so the news is skewed towards the bad news.
Of course. I mean, I think everyone can attest that a lot of it is just depressing. It's fear-based media.
Yeah, but that's because, they believe, the papers and the radio stations believe that's what sells.
Sure.
So a friend of mine once said it's like a nervous system that only lets in the pain and not the pleasure. Think about the media as a nervous system going around the world and, connecting everyone to everything. What did Marshall McLuhan call it? The global village? Yeah. But here's this nervous system only letting in the pain, not the pleasure. So when you look at the news, you get exposed to the negative. Now, this is really dangerous for people with depression because they tend to be negative anyway. Right. They tend to see the glass as half, empty as opposed to half full. They tend to look through a glass darkly. So, they're predisposed to worrying and being pessimistic and feeling hopeless. So all this does is reinforce it like tenfold.
Right.
So so that's one reason why you got to basically just be discriminating.
And how do you do that? How do you set boundaries or minimize unrealistic amounts of information regarding good and bad in the world? I mean, what's a tool? What's an option there?
I get the New York Times. I just glance at the headlines and get a sense of what's going on. But if something is really too bad or too painful, I don't read the article in detail because it's just going to get to me.
So you recognize that it could be upsetting and triggering, and you move on. You set that boundary with yourself.
Here's another thing that I want your viewers to know. The timing when you get exposed to the news, world events, is particularly important. Right before you wake up, as you're waking up, and right before you go to sleep, you're in something called a hypnagogic state. It's sort of an in-between space between waking and sleeping, between consciousness and unconsciousness.
Okay.
At that point, your subconscious mind is especially, open to suggestion. So here's an example I learned in a seminar. Actually, one of the people in a seminar I gave a long time ago told me a story. So he had a daughter about 8 years old, and he got her for her birthday a radio alarm clock. Okay. They'd wake up in the morning and go, get ready to go to school.
Sure.
And as soon as that happened, within the next couple of weeks, the teachers noticed that her behavior had changed. She was acting out. She was pushing people. She was acting aggressively.
So when she was in that hypnagogic state, when she was in that, when the radio turned on.
Yeah, what happens? The radio turned on to basically. She was turned on to like NPR.
Sure.
And the first thing that she was hearing was some disaster, some murder, some calamity, some disaster, and that was seeping into her subconscious.
Wow.
And
so this is really powerful. So you're saying that what you take into your system early on and late can be very influential and suggestive to how you can feel, how you can process from the day and going forward. So
what happened was, when they found this out, they changed the station to classical music. So now she's woken up to Mozart, to Bach,
Super untalented people. Keep going.
Yeah, yes. Especially Baroque music, but all sorts of music, but it's classical. And all the symptoms went away.
Wow.
So the power of, what happens when you... Okay, so I have this video on my channel, guys. You should watch it if you haven't seen it. It's called Begin and End the Day on a Positive Note.
All right. We'll put a link in the description for it.
Yeah. So what I suggest to people is, when you get up, you are so vulnerable to... You've heard of getting up on the wrong side of bed, right? Of
course.
So you're so vulnerable at that point, you want to consciously make sure that you sit down, say a positive affirmation, listen to some inspiring music, get your day off on the right foot by exposing yourself to something positive and something uplifting. Now, in the same way, right before you go to bed at night, you should, start to have a routine to get to bed, sit down, read something cool, again, listen to some nice music. Now, that's why one of my minister friends says, don't watch the 11 o'clock news. If the last thing you hear or see before going to bed is a bunch of bummers, it's going to affect your sleep. It's going to affect your sleep. And you're going to wake up in a bad mood or, feeling depressed. So
set boundaries.
The timing, you set boundaries and watch particularly what you expose yourself early in the morning or late in the evening.
Don't keep reading. It's within your power to stop. Unless you think more good would come of it, there's no reason to do it. You have to protect yourself, because if you're not keeping your brain space clear, how valuable or useful will you be to those around you who might need you most? I mean, they need you clear, you need yourself clear. You just have to figure out your triggers and cues and implement some of the things Doug has brought up here. And it's one more thing that we can do to just keep even, which is huge. A small thing can send some of us off for days, weeks, months.
Well, this guy who I talked to on the East Coast today, been 5 months.
I mean, and that's terrible. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Feel free to leave comments, share things you've learned for setting boundaries and dealing with hard to deal with information in the world. Show Doug lots of love. Check out his channel. This guy is class. He's as good as it gets for mental health topics. On point, consistent, very brilliant.
Why don't you tell him how to get to it?
Yeah, there's a link in the description. You can click that.
Or just basically go to YouTube and type in Douglas Bloch Depression.
Douglas Bloch Depression.
With an H. L-O-C-H.
There you go. And then you can just click in the link in the description.
Get right to the channel.
Perfect. And so we'll see you guys in the next video. Hang in there, whatever you're going through. You can get through it 1 day, 1 hour, 1 minute at a time. And thank you for being on the channel, sir.
Excellent. Yes, very much.
All right, guys.